Good evening, everyone, and welcome to The Shift. My name is Mark Jeffrey, and I am here with my co-host this evening, Linda Lehman. And tonight we're talking about something that we kind of delved into and something that hit the hearts of a lot of our listeners, and that's deserving your life. And is this really my life? And we just talked about this just previously about it can go both ways, right? It can be, is this really my life? I have an awesome life, but I don't feel that I deserve it, so I can't even enjoy it. Or you don't have the best life, and you just don't know how to get out of it. You don't feel you deserve that either. You're not a bad person. How come you got dealt these cards? And then all inside of this, the self-esteem gets wrapped up in it. And self-esteem is a huge thing, especially, I have to say, for women. We seem to base a lot of things on how we look and how we feel. We're such an emotional creature that sometimes logic just simply doesn't play a part in any decision that we make. And that's really detrimental to us. So we're going to talk about that. And we thought it was really, really important because of all of the people writing into us on this exact issue. And some people have been that. They said, you know, I had a great life. I was well on my way to doing something, and something happened. Somebody made a remark. I ate too many donuts. Something happened. And their life just went, all of it, not just a piece of it, but all of it just kind of slid away from them. And Linda and I started thinking about this. You know, what a tightrope we walk. What a slim edge that we walk in our lives between being happy and just accepting, you know, this is what I have and I'm going to make the best out of it. And it was funny, too, because last night I went out to Taste of Edmonton. It poured rain. I had all my windows open. So I just said, well, I got the opportunity to do my floors. And Linda, first thing this morning, she said, well, you know what? You don't have to do them. So we come tonight. My floors are done. My house is clean. And I actually had the day to do nothing because everything was cleaned last night. So this morning when we talked about what we were going to do on tonight's show, the floors are done. I'm comfortable. And yeah, folks, this is really my life. And a lot of people say to this, you can never be this happy all the time. I can't. I'm not. But I certainly have the tools, and we hope to give you the tools, to get myself out of a funk really quickly. And I know it sounds pretty cliche when you say make lemonade out of lemons, but reality, that's what we're doing. It is, and it's what we have to do. You know, Linda, I know that in your life, you're going through some stuff right now that most people would be totally devastated by. And they would be rightfully so. I don't blame them one iota because it's something that's it could dramatically change your life. But you're happy and you're upbeat, but not all the time. How do you make it through it, Linda, when the darkness starts creeping up on you?
Good question, Mark. Yeah, for the listeners who don't know, in November of this last year, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and instead of rolling up in a ball and crying in the corner, I look at it as a gift. And sometimes when I tell people that, they look at me like I've grown an extra head or two on my shoulders because they can't believe that those words just came out of my mouth, that this is a gift. But it truly is, because it gives me the opportunity to find ways to be happy and find ways to use this as a tool to go out and help others. You know, this also reminds me, Mark, of when I first made the decision to meet my mentor, Bob Proctor, and be trained by him. Mm-hmm. I made the decision in January, and right after I made the decision and started becoming a part of the Life Success Consultant community, Bob actually had a health issue. He was in California doing a live event, and he finally admitted to those around him, and this was very strange for Bob to do this. He said, "I don't feel good," and because he's always a proponent of feeling bad or not feeling good is a low negative vibration, and you can just change your thinking and you can pull yourself up into a high vibration. So for him to say, "I don't feel good," was pretty major deal. Well, they finally convinced him to go see a physician friend of one of them, and come to find out, Mark, to make a long story short, he wound up being immediately admitted to the hospital, and he had open heart surgery. He actually had a virus that had attacked one of his heart valves, and if he hadn't have taken action at that point in time, the doctors told him within 6 weeks he would have been gone. But instead he had this surgery, but I made it an intention in my mind, actually a year before that one day I was going to meet Bob Proctor, look him in the eye, and shake his hand. And so the training with him was scheduled for April of that same year, so from January to April. And I am very happy to report, I kept focusing, I'm going to meet him in person, I'm going to meet him face-to-face. In April of that year, I had the opportunity to not only meet Bob, shake his hand, look him in the eyes, but I got a hug from him every day for an entire week. There was a first live thing that he had done since his surgery, and I have to say he looked fit and wonderful and back to his old self. But he shared a lesson with us, and this brings me back around to answering your question. And it was a lesson that was taught to him by his very good friend and someone he calls a mentor, which is Michael Beckwith of the Agape Church. And Michael said getting through something that happens is really a three-step process. And he says sometimes things just happen. They just happen. There's no rhyme, no reason to it. It just happens. And so, as cliche as this sounds, it is what it is. Accept it. You can either allow this thing or this person to control you, or you can control it. And then he says, look at the situation or the circumstance. Look for the good. Harvest the good. In other words, learn the lesson. Learn the lesson this has to teach you. Harvest the good, and then forgive the rest. And to forgive means to forget about it completely, abandon it, put it aside, never think of it again.
And I think that would be excellent advice, and I know that I follow it too, but also you and I both know that when you're down at the bottom, there isn't, at that point in time, you don't see any good. And I'll be totally honest with everyone. When I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, I was madder than a hornet. And that was probably my first reaction. And I was just like you, what? I don't deserve this. This is ridiculous. I do everything right. How could this be my life? How can this be happening to it? And it took me some time, to then sit down and say, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? And I've told everybody this, 2 hours sitting on the steps of the Cross Cancer Institute, I made a plan. So in respect, that's, what you do. It's instead of saying to people, well, make lemonade out of lemons, what I'm saying is make a plan. Make a plan, because that's what you need to do. You have to say, okay, just like Linda said, okay, this is what it is. But when you can't find the good in it, because I'm going to tell you, I didn't see any good in it. Not one single speck anywhere. There was no good in it. But I had a plan. And from that plan, good started arriving at my door.
Right. You made a decision that this was not going to defeat you, right?
Exactly.
It wasn't going to define
I was
you.
mad.
It wasn't going to defeat you. Right. You got mad. And you know what? Mad is good. Mad is much better than just being depressed and giving up.
Absolutely. It's self-pity. That doesn't win any wars, my friends, because I'm going to tell you something, a lesson I learned through that experience. you do find out who your friends are. You do find out who cares about you. And the self-pity, and you think people are going to come to your door and say, oh, poor you, trust me, they're walking out the door going in the other direction. You're going to feel alone. Yep. You're going to feel alone, and you're going to, it's all up to you. No matter what happens in your life, this is the one thing, if nothing else we ever say on this show, it's all up to you. The good, the bad, the ugly, you do have control over all of it. Because if you have a spouse that bullies you, you can leave. I mean, you can leave. Whether maybe you have to leave a lifestyle that you're comfortable in. Maybe your kids are not going to go to private school. Maybe you're going to live in a small little shack somewhere. But that reality and that happiness is much better than being bullied every single day of your life. If you're sick right now and your doctors aren't giving you the answers that you want, well, you better get in more demanding pose the next time you go see them, because it is up to you. Right, Linda?
Exactly, Mark. It's totally up to you, 100%. Not only what you do with your life, how you feel about it. You know, we have a choice, even if when bad things are happening, of how we're going to allow that to control how we feel. And, sometimes when we're in, it's a suggestion that I have, when we're in one of those situations where it's a horrible situation through your perspective and you just can't see a way out of it at this point in time, stop and take some time and ask yourself, and this is what you did when you said that you had a plan. Stop and ask yourself, and have some good old self-talk. And some of it might be negative at first, but let's turn that around and make it positive. This really bites. It's in the bottom of the scum hole. It's horrible. Okay, I recognize that. I get that. So what do I want? What do I want instead? How do I want this to play out? Get a paper and pen, and I'm not talking about, I'm just going to put this in my mind and remember it later, or I'm going to type it on the computer. No. Get a paper and a pen or a pencil and start writing down in detail exactly what you want, exactly how you want it to look, how you want this thing to play out, whatever it is. Write it down, because writing starts that creative process, and it starts pulling you back out of the darkness into the light, just a simple act of writing. Don't skip it. When I'm talking with coaching clients, Mark, and they start telling me that this stuff doesn't work, one of the very first questions I ask them, did you write it down? Did you write down what you wanted? And 9 times out of the 10, they say, no, I didn't write it down. I have it in my mind, though. And I say, no, go back and write it down.
Yeah. And I think, too, we always talk about this on the shows when people, think of, they don't look at things in the same eyes, Linda, that you and I do, because it has been proven to us, in many, many different ways, that the life that we live and how we live it enhances everything. But I know a lot of people think things are just coincidence. But I've always been able to do something. So I know that once you start this process of writing things down, because I keep journals, that I have stacks and stacks and stacks of them, and it's interesting how now writing this book, I have to go back and read them, because I don't, you don't really remember the darkness when you don't want to go there anymore. So I have to go back and do this. But eventually what happens inside your mind is your mind becomes your journal too. And it makes directions and flow because it's used to something. We did the exercise last week of, having something and then just going next. Now, consider that if you did what Linda had asked you to do throughout this entire week, you're training your mind to understand what I do want, what I don't want, clearly by writing it down. See, because we get muddled in our mind too, and and it's the monkey, right? It's the monkey chatter, because you're going to have an argument inside your head, and everybody's done this. I know you all have. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then way in the back is something. No, you can't. No, you can't. No, you can't. You know, and you go, oh yeah, I am. No, I remember the last time. It didn't work out for you. And the next thing you know, you're listening to the monkey chatter. Whereas if you're sitting and writing it down, there's two acts that are happening here. Okay? It's muscle memory and brain connection. So it's a different way of training yourself to do something. And it works remarkably well, because now what I can do, if I think of somebody like I want to communicate with, I just kind of think of them and say, and oftentimes I go, I should give them a call, or I should connect with them, or something like that, right? I'll do that. But the thing is that they'll call me. It's kind of out there. I need to connect with this person, and it happens. An interesting thing just happened again the other day. I was thinking about somebody, and this was somebody I knew a long time ago. I actually dated him. And I was thinking about him, and I have no idea why, because it was so long ago. My daughter was 3, but I was thinking about he was, would have been a good father. What if he got married, and just kind of, thinking about his life. I walked in on Friday night to get Chinese at this place, and I double-take look. There he was, sitting there. After all those years, I had not seen him, not even thought about him. But here I was thinking about him, and he appears. See, all of those things tie up into what you think about is going to happen. And so I decided that day on the steps that I was not going to, this was my firm word, for 2 years. Okay, this was my thing. I was not going to die from cancer. I needed 2 years. That was it. That was my plan. Now we all know it's many years later. That was my plan. And then from that plan, I just kept attracting into my plan all of the best things for me. And I went out and secured them. And you can do that too. But I wrote it down. Who do I need? Why do I need them? What are they going to do for me? When do I need them? And I had it all laid out, just like a business plan, a grocery list. People who go to the grocery store without a list always come home with stuff they really don't need, and they spend too much money. People who go to the grocery store with a list and actually look at the list come home with exactly what they need. Right? It just works.
Sorry, Mark. You're telling a story on me when you were down here in Florida.
Well, I couldn't help it, because I do the same thing all the time.
I had a beautiful list, and we got to like the last 3 things, and I said, okay, I can remember those. And so I put the list away, and sure enough, I got home and I forgot like the key ingredient that we needed, or that Randy needed, to make what he was going to make for us. So I had to get back in the car and go back to the store to get cream cheese. so yeah, we're laughing together at Linden. It's okay.
Well, the thing is that's what happens, though, right? Well, let's put that in a life experience. If we don't write it down and we don't have that plan, something is going to get forgotten, and it might be, like you said, the most important ingredient to your life might be missing because you didn't take the time to write it down. Like how simple, right? You skipped a small step that totally impacts your life. Wow. Why would you not follow the steps? Linda, what happens in somebody's head when they're not doing these things? What are they thinking about?
Well,
they're not thinking about.
Well, they're not thinking. They're actually just having mental activity is what's happening. Most of us, to coin a phrase, most of us think we think, but we're not. Because mental activity isn't thinking. When you are physically taking control of those thoughts that are running through your mind, and there are 60,000 thoughts that run through your mind on a daily basis.
Oh,
somewhere
yeah.
in that neighborhood. But most of them are just repeats of something else that happened, before. But when you take control, then it becomes constructive. And one of the ways that you can begin to take control or have control is to write things down and to take that list. Let's just say that you are determined now. Maybe you're mad like Mark was, or there's just this grand accomplishment that you want. And now you get it. Okay, I've been thinking about this, and maybe you've studied law of attraction a little bit and think, well, if I just sit here in my chair and I just think about it, it's going to happen, right? That's what a lot of people, when they first read the book The Secret, they don't understand the steps in between the lines, the things that they need to do, the actions that they need to take. So that's when they start saying, well, it doesn't work. But if you just go ahead and take that exercise, write it down in detail. I mean, not wishy-washy, because if you're wishy-washy, Mark, as you know, you're not going to get any results that way either if you keep saying, oh, I want this. Oh, no, I changed my mind, I want this. Or, no, I guess I won't go for that after all, I'll go for this. You're actually allowing that monkey chatter to mess up your control of your thoughts. So write it down, be exact, be detailed. This is what I want. This is my plan. This is how I think I can get it, but keep yourself open, because if you allow yourself to take some twists and turns along the way, as long as it's moving you forward and a step closer to what you want, you're still on track. It's not enough to write it down, Mark. You got to read it every day. Yep. Read it every day. Take that action.
Exactly. And you also have to, it's like everything else, strike it off your list. If you've actually accomplished something, do the little celebratory dance because you deserve it. And that brings us into, another part of this is people living incredible lives who think they don't deserve it. They think, oh, I just lucked out, or, but for the grace of God. Honestly, folks, that isn't how this comes about. Yes, you might have had parents who understood. I take great joy in the success that my daughter now sees, and I see the points that I've given her. And when she comes back and says, had you not done that when I hated you for doing that, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Then I know that the plan I had for her and the steps I took, well, it worked out pretty darn good. And I celebrate in that. And I think that that's what happens. You don't understand. You can be born into a great family with a lot of money, right? And think that you don't deserve this life. Well, there's one way that you can go out and help some other people. Then maybe that will help you feel better about the life that you lead. But if you've earned it, if you've come up through the trenches and finally you're making money, finally you're in a good relationship. I've seen so many relationships ruined because one or the other person thinks they didn't deserve the other person. I'm going, what? You are attracted to each other. You have all these things in common. And that's, again, where I sit down and I say, write that down. Why do I like this person? Why do I like spending time with them? And I always stay out of why do I love them, only for me because it's such an emotional thing that nobody can really put a handle on it. You just, well, why do you love your husband? I don't know, I just do. That's not good enough either. Right, Linda?
Oh, exactly. I like the term like, actually. But people, I really want people to understand that, they were created as the most magnificent being that was put here on this earth, so they deserve everything that they desire. I like your suggestion. If you're not feeling worthy, go help somebody else, because I can guarantee no matter what's going on around you, that's going to pull you out. It's going to pull you out. If you are living what a lot of people would call the sweet life, the good life, yet you don't feel like you deserve it, you did something right along the way. Give yourself, if nothing else, give yourself a pat on the back for that. But true happiness, true joy, love, self-worth comes from within. It comes from inside of us, Mark. There's nothing outside of us that can make us happy or make us love or even make us angry. There's nothing outside of ourselves. It's all inside, and it's up to us to take control of that and understand, okay, if I'm feeling this way, if I'm feeling low or unworthy, then I know that the opposite of that is feeling great and wonderful and deserving, and I can make that change inside of me with my thoughts, and I can change my feelings.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because I think in the world that we kind of live in, people have come from obscurity and from very hard places. They've come across a great idea on the internet. I mean, the internet is, with all these different things that you can do now and make money. I really do believe that I think that's where most of our coaching clients come from, Linda, only because it's such a hyped up environment that money from nothing and my checks for free, and I just, I popped out of nowhere, and 90 days later I got a check for whatever it was. And people believe that they have the tools to do that as well. They believe it, and that's fine, because I believe anybody can do it. I certainly do. But I also know it's going to take some work. And the disillusionment of that process, I've talked to so many, well, it was me, my mentor, he said, I should have done something different. I wasn't working hard enough. And to get them from, okay, stop right there, because that's simply not true, unless, of course, you were sitting on your duff and not doing anything. But don't allow other people to define you. And this happens every day. But in the internet marketing world and all of this stuff going around, all of my coaching clients come from here. I'm going, well, thank you all very much for giving me that, because it makes me more prosperous. But I hurt inside all the time, because all of these people allowing other people to say, you're not all that in the cookie jar too.
Mhm. Yeah, I developed a mantra a long, long time ago, and I know that many people, I've read that many people claim it's their quote, but I love it, and it's what other people think of me or say to me is none of my business.
Yeah, my dad used to tell me that all the time.
Because so many times we allow other people's opinions of us to influence our thinking. I mean, this just made me think of something. When I was in grade school, going way back, I grew up, I have freckles, and, kids make fun of freckles. And
oh, yeah, got them too.
Yeah, I remember walking through the library one day, and a guy that I had a crush on was sitting next to another girl in my class, and I heard him mumble, because I was wearing a little skirt that day, I heard him mumble, nice legs. But then she said, too bad her face doesn't match that.
No.
Oh, crushed me for the longest time. My self-esteem went in the toilet. It's silly that some words from somebody else made me sink so low. Of course, I hadn't studied any of this, but it took, my parents are very supportive, so when I finally told them what was bugging me a few days later, they bolstered me back up again. But it's silly for us to allow other people to influence what we think of ourselves, because, quite frankly, we're the only ones that matter.
Yep. But it's true, too, though. We come up conditioned for that, from our parents deciding, if something is good enough or not. I mean, I had a challenging, my dad thought, because he thought the world of me, and I've come to understand that, because he thought the world of me, he wanted the best for me. But he wouldn't allow me to be mediocre when I was mediocre at something. And it felt like an insult, right? When he said, well, I ran the whole race barefoot on a cross-country tour thing. He said, yeah, but you came in fifth. It was like, so I always felt like I was never good enough. And then you go to school, right? So you're put into this bunch of people that you know really nothing about. You don't know anything about them. It's a good conditioning for life, and I think that that's what school really is, okay, if you make it through this, you might make it through life. And because there's all of those different pieces to it, inside of there, right? But then you get some teacher that, the teacher's pet, and then the person that the kids are a little slower learning, and then you might be that person one day. So now you think you don't stack up, and then you're making decisions based on that and not on you. If you can say at every single point in your life, I don't care where it is, I did the best I could. Like, I really, honestly, I'm not lying to myself. Like, don't deke yourself out and just say that and you didn't do it, because in your heart of hearts, when you go to the limit and beyond. You know it. But don't let other people say you didn't do that. And especially you guys, a lot of you that are on our show, you're marketers out there. Be careful who you do business with. And if they're not lifting you up, no, I don't care what that business is, you need to find someone else to be able to lift you up and support you. Get friends and people that are on your side. You have to be on there. You have to have people on your side all the time, because they're the people that are going to say, you know what, you're being a little bit of a today, and it's going to be real. And then right on the heels of that, I'll say, but I love you anyway, but change that, would you?
Exactly. Sometimes we're that way. We just don't even realize it. It does take a true friend or a mentor or a coach to say, what are you thinking about right now?
Yeah.
How are you being? Oh. Then you usually recognize it within yourself.
Yeah. And those are the things. And I think we live in such a world. I mean, there's so much out there right now. And, with the Zimmerman trial and discrimination. And, it's interesting for me, and I say this all the time to as many audiences that I speak to, is I do come from Canada. And the majority of the people that I grew up with in my life were of a Caucasian person. But all of my life, I've never seen color. I just don't see it. I don't like some of the foods. Some people of other cultures, they don't smell good to my nose. But as a person, I wouldn't fault them for that, because they might have really cool clothes. Or they might wear really neat. And my daughter also does not see color. And I don't know if it's because we didn't grow up with any kind of problems within it, where there was never any fighting, because people in Canada just kind of get integrated into where we are, and it's your neighbor. And it's your neighbor, and there's nothing there. So I don't have prejudices. I don't think people are smaller or bigger than me. I just think people are people. And some people do very well in their lives because they're so determined about it, that they knew from the moment they were born that they were going to be, the president. They knew they were going to run a company. They knew they were going to be a truck driver. They just knew it, and that's what they went out and they just did that, and they're the happiest people on earth. So I think that defining who you are and not allowing other people to define who you are, no matter what creed, color, or how much money you got in your jeans right now, I think that's the most important lesson that you could learn today, that you stand up and you be all that you are, because you are all that you are. Linda, I always give the last word to you because you're always so profound in these situations.
Well, I have something today or tonight to for people to really think about. And, we've been saying you are a magnificent person and a magnificent being, and you get to choose. You get to choose what you're going to do and who you're going to be and what you're going to have. And we touched on it earlier that it starts with our beautiful mind, and what we are thinking and how we're thinking and how we're taking control of that. Because when you look around you, everything going on in your physical environment was at once a thought. It was a thought in your mind. So what you see now is evidence of what you thought in the past. And so one of my favorite authors is James Allen. He wrote this itty-bitty little book called As a Man Thinketh. And this is the way he said it, and I just absolutely love it. He said, mind is the master power that molds and makes, and man is mind, and evermore he takes the tool of thought, and, shaping what he wills, brings forth 1,000 joys, 1,000 ills. He thinks in secret, and it comes to pass. Environment is but his looking glass.
I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Yeah. So let's all I can say is thank you, each and every one of you, for being here tonight. We certainly do appreciate our listeners. We also appreciate and welcome all of your comments that you send in to us. Most of them that we get are on Facebook, and I appreciate that. If you need help, you know that we're here. If you got a topic that you want us to discuss, hey, let us know, because we're here for that. This show is really about you and how we can help you take that next step. So with that being said, Linda, good night, my friend.
Good night, Mark.